all like to have a whinge about WWE's booking every now and again, or every day in some cases. A particular bugbear with fans is how when one of their favourites loses a match, they are supposedly buried. Now, this is patently untrue, since a single loss is, 9 times out of 10, not going to stall a performer's momentum too much. In fact, I would argue that 50-50 booking and inept storylines are, on the whole, far more damaging. If a wrestler is good and knows how to get over, they can lose a match, or many matches, and still come out of it relatively unharmed. However, there are times when a match has been built in such a way that someone simply needs to win it more, and a loss within that context can be devastating and cause irreparable damage. A win could be the difference between being a mid-carder or a main eventer, a champion or a Hall of Famer. WWE have, in the past, done some of their stars a disservice by putting the wrong person over at the expense of another, with often dire consequences. Let's relive the pain all over again, shall we? I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 most damaging single losses in WWE history. Join us. Number 10, Goldberg Elimination Chamber SummerSlam 2003. WWE stuttered with Goldberg from the off, having signed him 2 years after WCW went out with a whimper. The former WCW World Heavyweight Champion was still a big star and had an aura, but long back and forth matches with The Rock and Chris Jericho, where he worked a WWE style, did not make him look like the unstoppable monster that got so over in Ted Turner's organization. The first time we got to see the real Goldberg was in the World Heavyweight Title Elimination Chamber match at SummerSlam 2003. Entering the match at number 5, he dismantled Jericho, Shawn Michaels, and Randy Orton, blasting Y2J through one of the glass pods with an almighty spear as fans roared in approval. After dispatching of the trio, it was finally down to Goldberg versus Triple H. Smashing his way into the game's pod, it looked as though the champ was easy pickings. As Goldberg went for a spear, however, the cerebral assassin connected with a well-timed sledgehammer hit to the back of his foe's head and picked up the win. This should have been Goldberg's night, since he looked like a killer and the fans were truly behind him for perhaps the first time in his WWE run. Instead, politics meant that he had to wait a month to win the gold at the next pay-per-view, by which point fans didn't care half as much, and Goldberg's triumph came off as a serious anticlimax. Number 9, Bray Wyatt to John Cena at WrestleMania 30. The Husky Harris was able to go away to developmental for a couple of years and completely reinvent himself as an intriguing character unlike anything seen in WWE for decades, is a testament to the mind and creativity of Wyndham Rotunda. Bray Wyatt and his spooky family ran roughshod over WWE when they arrived in the summer of 2013, laying waste to Kane, Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, and The Shield within their first few months on the roster. Fans were genuinely enthralled by the mystical Eater of Worlds, and it seemed as though he was on a path to the top. Then he ran into John Cena. Okay, so a featured match at WrestleMania against Big Match John is a clear indication that a company has faith in you, but as we've seen with others in the past, the inevitable Cena wins lol can have a seriously adverse effect on an up-and-comer's career. After months of build and callous Bray trying to get the face of the company to embrace the hate, Cena simply beat him with an AA after a so-so match that Wyatt really needed to win. The loss here on such a big stage and in such a weak manner, coupled with his defeat in a last man standing match at the following month's Payback, set Bray's main event aspirations back a long way. It's only in the last year or two that he's really managed to regain that momentum, and he needed a serious gimmick change to do it. Number 8, the Honky Tonk Man to the Ultimate Warrior at SummerSlam 1988. The Honky Tonk Man is the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time, holding the title for 454 days after beating Ricky Steamboat for the gold on the June 13th, 1987 episode of Superstars. The Dime Store Elvis is probably still getting booked today based on that fact, and to be honest, it's a hell of a claim to fame. Throughout his lengthy reign, he would typically escape from matches with the belt around his waist by the skin of his teeth. A count-out, a disqualification, cheating to win, all classics of the Honky Tonk Man playbook. His underhanded ways incensed fans who simply couldn't wait for him to finally lose the title. Honky was originally going to defend against Brutus Beefcake at the 1988 SummerSlam, but the barber couldn't make it after having his forehead ripped apart by Outlaw Ron Bass, so he was put in there with a surprise challenger instead. The ultimate surprise, as it turns out, because everyone's favorite neon-soaked, tassel-wearing meathead sprinted out, and 30 seconds later was the new champ. Warrior went on to have a lengthy reign and parlayed his IC success into a WWE title reign as he became one of the biggest stars in the business. Mr. Man, on the other hand, just sort of bounced around, forming a tag team with Greg Valentine before fading into relative obscurity. He was never quite the same after that SummerSlam steamrolling. Number 7, Tatanka to Ludwig Borger on WWE Superstars. The winning streak is one of the oldest tricks in the book when it comes to getting a talent, especially a new one, established and over. Let the person rack up wins and never have him taste defeat, and over time, he will become legitimized in the eyes of the fans. Then when it's time to finally end that winning run, the person who gets the elusive victory over the streak holder will, in theory, become a big deal because of it. It worked for Bruno Sammartino, it worked for The Undertaker, it worked for Asuka. Ugh, she really needed it, didn't she? It would have probably worked for Tatanka too, had the streak been ended by someone different and under different circumstances. The War Eagle had gone almost 2 years without suffering a loss on television when he was beaten by Ludwig Borger on the October 30th, 1993 edition of Superstars. The Hellraiser from Helsinki was due for a massive push, and so Vince McMahon sacrificed Tatanka in a bid to get him ready for the big time. Unfortunately, Borger injured his ankle soon after and wound up leaving the company. A scheduled rematch with Tatanka thus never happened, and the Native American floundered, eventually exiting the company having not won a single title. Number 6, Superstar Billy Graham to Bob Backlund. Superstar Billy Graham really was a superstar back in the 1970s. The man who clearly inspired Hulk Hogan to rip off much of his act was a hot ticket, selling out Madison Square Garden 19 out of the 20 shows he appeared on as a headliner. Having taken the title from the already legendary Bruno Sammartino, Graham was on fire and helped WWE do big business. Vince McMahon Sr., however, decided he wanted to go in a much different direction and earmarked the comparatively colourless Bob Backlund to be his next standard bearer. Now, Backlund was an accomplished athlete and a hell of a wrestler, but he couldn't hope to compete with Graham's charisma and flamboyance. Superstar felt the same, and trying to retain that top spot and build on his 296-day reign, attempted to talk the boss out of making the switch. But Vince had a handshake agreement with Backlund, and so on February 20th, 1978, in the world's most famous arena, the All-American beat Graham with an atomic drop to become new champion. Not content to play second fiddle to the man who beat him, Graham would exit WWE shortly after and, truth be told, never achieved the same level of notoriety or success after losing the title. Number 5, Ryback to CM Punk, Hell in a Cell 2012. CM Punk had taken on all comers during his epic WWE title reign in 2011 and 2012. It looked as though nobody could take the strap off the straight-edge superstar, as he somehow managed to get past everyone from John Cena and The Big Show to Chris Jericho and Daniel Bryan, putting on a number of show-stealing performances along the way. While Punk was racking up defenses, the man who once lumbered around as Skip Sheffield was mowing down everyone who got in his way. Ryback's Goldberg-esque win streak made him a popular figure and eventually led to a WWE title match with Punk inside Hell in a Cell. Having gotten over organically and possessing pretty much all of the traits that Vince McMahon looks for in his top star, most assumed that he would be walking out of the cage as the new champion. Thrust into the main event before he was probably ready to be there, to be honest, Ryback's 38-match winning streak came to an end thanks to an assist from dodgy referee Brad Maddox. If Ryback was ever going to win the big one, this was the night that he was going to do it. But it wasn't, and after failing to strike while the iron was hot, Ryback was never the same afterwards as he began to slide down the card. Number 4, Vader to Shawn Michaels, SummerSlam 1996. It was time, it was time, it was Vader's time. The former IWGP and WCW World Heavyweight Champion was on a tear upon entering WWE in 1996, and it wasn't long before he set his sights on pretty boy WWE Champion Shawn Michaels. HBK was also having himself quite a year, having won the Royal Rumble and then downing Bret Hart to win the title in a 60-minute Iron Man match at WrestleMania. Though WWE business was alright, WCW was starting to overtake them thanks to the success of Nitro and the formation of the red-hot NWO. NWO. Many believed that, as the showstopper and the Mastodon headed toward their big main event match at SummerSlam, that Vader should win and be given a run with the belt. On the day, however, it was that super talented sexy boy who prevailed. Despite initially losing by countout and then disqualification, Michaels scored the important pin on the third restart, and like that, Vader's monster aura had just about vanished. Didn't really help that Shawn threw a mid-match hissy fit over a botched spot and had been audibly complaining about working with the, snug Vader in the weeks leading up to the bout, of course. Vader was given a few future title opportunities, but nobody took him too seriously as a contender, and it wasn't long before he departed WWE to go and rebuild his formidable reputation in Japan. Number 3, Damien Sandow to John Cena on Raw. If ever there was a case of somebody getting over in spite of creative team apathy, it's Damien Sandow. A man known for taking anything, no matter how small, and making the absolute most of it, Sandow looked like a star, whether he was booked to do a 30-second promo or wrestle a 30-minute match. His natural rise to popularity led to him winning the Money in the Bank briefcase in 2013, and with a potential year to build him up into somebody who was championship material, there was every hope that the intellectual savior of the masses could successfully smash through that darned glass ceiling. Sandow didn't wait a year, however, instead challenging WWE champion John Cena, who had only won the belt at the previous night's pay-per-view, to a match on the October 28, 2013 episode of Raw. Big Match John was going into the contest with a broken wing, having sustained an injured arm while overcoming Alberto Del Rio. Seeking to take advantage, Sandow smashed the limb with the ring steps, ring post, and a steel chair before latching on a crossface. When that didn't do the trick, he reverted to every move in his arsenal, including some he'd never done before, but it simply wasn't enough. Cena rose above it all and nailed a solitary AA for the 1-2-3. Sandow had missed the chance to become a made man and wouldn't get a sniff at the WWE title for the rest of his tenure. Number 2, Booker T to Triple H, WrestleMania 19. After a stuttering start to his WWE career, Booker T rebounded in 2003 and became the #1 contender to Triple H's World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania 19. The former 5-time WCW champion was considered the underdog when going up against The Game, who was bang in the middle of his infamous reign of terror. Rob Van Dam, Kane, Shawn Michaels, and Scott Steiner had all failed to dethrone the Cerebral Assassin, who, lest we forget, was simply handed the belt by Eric Bischoff. The feud took a couple of unsavory turns as WWE resorted to what could be considered shock tactics. There were definite racial undertones as Trips commented on T's nappy hair and claimed that people like Booker could never be and didn't deserve to be world champion. It was an attempt to be edgy, but in truth, it just turned people off. Still, fans were desperate to see the master of the Spinneroonie pull off the upset, and given how the storyline had gone, WrestleMania basically had to be his night, right? Nope. Triple H scored the win after a half-decent match, pinning his opponent following a pedigree, waiting a long time before crawling over for the cover no less, and sending Booker back to the mid-card. I couldn't dig it then, and I cannot dig it now, sucker. Number 1, NEXUS to Team WWE at SummerSlam 2010. The debut of the NEXUS was a prime example of how to take a bunch of relative unknowns and make them, collectively, a big deal within a single night. When Wade Barrett, Daniel Bryan, Justin Gabriel, Heath Slater, Skip Sheffield, Michael Tarver, David Otunga, and Darren Young invaded Raw and destroyed not only John Cena and CM Punk, but everyone at ringside and the ring itself, you knew it was on. And in the following weeks, the group of so-called rookies made more noise and took more names, making their presence known to current top stars and WWE legends. The attacks led to a 7-on-7 elimination tag match at SummerSlam, with the boys in black and yellow taking on an all-star team of Chris Jericho, Edge, Bret Hart, John Morrison, R-Truth, a returning Daniel Bryan, and John Cena in the headliner. Just a couple of short months into the group's existence, this was a match that the NEXUS simply had to prevail in order to make a statement and solidify themselves as a dominant force moving forward. And it looked as though they might just do it, as the match got down to Barrett and Gabriel versus a knackered John Cena. Incredibly though, WWE booked the match to finish with Big Match John surviving a DDT on the concrete floor before avoiding a 450 splash and dispatching his opponents with ease. Jericho and Edge have both gone on record as saying that the wrong team and guy went over, and they are not not wrong. This all but killed off the Nexus before they even had a chance to get going.